Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Two Shots and the Ball, AUS Pros Edition. This week, we are truly gifted with a caper here. It's Meshack Lufile. I'll get to some AUS numbers for you, Meshack. Tell the people how you did. 1,262 total points, 618 total rebounds, 100 blocks over 5 years, AUS champ in 2012-2013, Defensive Player of the Year, and first All-Star team in 2015-2016. Spent a year in the Netherlands. He's back in his favorite place, Atlantic Canada, the Island Storm, and now most recently a Halifax Hurricane. Meshack, how are you doing?
Good, man. Good, man. Good. Glad to be here.
Happy to have you. Really looking forward to talking basketball. So we'll get to it. The man with the CBU jacket on, Coach Skin, how are you doing, buddy?
Good. Enjoying the beautiful weather. How are you guys doing?
Doing well. AD, what's up, man?
All is good. Another week.
Yeah, looking forward to tackling it. So, Meshack, usually the first question, my man, is how did you get from Burlington, Ontario to be playing in CBU?
It's actually a funny story. So at the time before Coach King came in, there was a Coach Jim Charters. Honestly, when someone brought up the word Nova Scotia to me, I instantly thought of polar bears and snow. My geography was very off, obviously. Never have I been to Nova Scotia. Never have I been out east and knew nothing about it. And Coach Jim Charters was actually the only coach that came to a prep showcase I was at. And I performed well, and then he offered me and wanted me to come down and everything. And, I mean, the rest is history pretty much. You know, I had an injury. I had some other places. I actually sustained an injury on my recruiting trip at Cape Breton. I broke my foot. So then, like, I pretty much just only started talking to Cape Breton because they were so interested. And then I ended up signing with Coach Jim Charters. So here I am.
Nice. Happy with your decision. CBU was great when you were on your way in, too, so that must have helped.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, we had definitely some good memories. I think my favorite thing Meshack ever said to me was, besides his mother, I'm the person that said his first name more times than anybody else.
Oh, how true is that? It's in my head.
Yeah,
I think it's in everybody's.
I used to get like legit, like people in the community would come to me and be like, especially after he was finished playing, be like, I don't know if we really liked how you treated Meshack while he was there. And I was just like, oh man, I definitely agree that I was hard on him. It's just because I felt he was the best big man in the country, and I was hoping to get that out of him, and I thought we got to that point. But Meshack, talk a little bit about some of your teammates in the competition that you played against when you were at CBU and in the AUS, and how they made you a better player.
First, I mean, coming into my rookie year, obviously it's a little difficult. We had a lot of rookies that year. We had myself, we had AJ, we had a couple other guys. But again, I thought the best player in the country was Jimmy Dorsey. My most memorable moment with him is he put up 49, 14, and 9 against Acadia. And that was probably the most, like, he literally, I think the second lead he scored that game was me with maybe 9. And I've never witnessed that type of performance with my eyes ever on a guy that I played with. And it was effortless because, like, Jimmy never went to the weight room. Jimmy would put up shots sometimes, but he was so naturally gifted. He just made the game easier for me. At that time, I was more of like a running big, just catch and score. Obviously, when Matt took over, you know, I had to take more of an onus in scoring in the paint because more responsibility was put on me. But that year, I mean, we had Jimmy, we had Shaq Keith, we had Cedric Kasongo, we had Sean McCormick. Probably the best team I've ever played on to this day. You know, fell short of our goal. I thought we should have been in the national finals, but Lakehead, you know, they're a very experienced team. They had 5 seniors. But other than that, I mean, in terms of competition playing against, toughest matchups for me, probably Harry Ezenibe and Owen Klassen. They were 2 monsters. Harry was built like a brick. I remember in my rookie season, they subbed in Harry in the game. he caught the ball 5 times and scored on me 5 straight times and just subbed right out. And I think that was the day I was like, all right, welcome to the AUS. I got to get stronger. I got to really get on my high horse. So those are probably the 2 players that I really remember that gave me trouble. So.
But take us a little bit inside the coaching then. Not a lot of guys take hard coaching well. They don't respond to it. But you listed a bunch of your teammates there. And that was a gritty team, man. Jimmy was smooth and all that, but Sean and these guys, y'all grinded, right?
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
And it seems like you responded to that hard coaching. How did that translate for you, even as a pro? You've heard it all at this point from a coach, and that's got to bode well in your professional life.
I think for me, after Coach Charters was released, I remember we did like a candidate thing at the school, and Matt Skin's time was up. And I remember we did a drill, and it was like we would put the ball at the free throw line and grab it. And at this time, I wasn't really dunking too much. It wasn't that aggressive. And I remember I caught the ball, and I dunked it on AJ. And everyone was kind of just like, damn, Meshack did that. And then from that moment on, I think Matt saw something in me that I didn't see in myself clearly. So, yeah, he was definitely hard on me, but I think it's helped me now in the pros because, especially the pros, it's very cutthroat. You don't have time to complain about, oh, if this coach is nice, whatever, because now it's about money, and they want to make as much money as they can. They want to have the best teams they can. So, like, if you're not responding, especially to constructive criticism, you're on your way out, right? At Cape Breton or in college, you can build for 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 years and maybe be that guy in your 5th year, but the margin for error and the pros is so small. But I think now, and I made this joke with Matt and I said, I don't think there's a single coach that can yell at me. Everything goes out the air now because I heard it all from him. And
there's not too many guys that when Jim Charters leaves an organization can live up to that level of hype. Matt, you might have even been the smooth guy in that relationship, Matt. I don't know, Matt.
Yeah. Well, I played for Jimmy. He was tough.
Yeah, you did. That's right.
I remember my fifth year, I got hurt right towards the end of the season, and I came back, and it was literally 2.5 minutes into practice right in my last season. He stopped the practice, and he yelled at me. He said, "Skin, we're not waiting for you. I don't know what you're doing out here." And I was looking around. I was like, I've been up for 2 weeks. Like, I just stepped back onto the floor, and he just went crazy. And I remember Jarrett Timmons. I always remember him looking at me. He's like, what did you do, man? I'm like, I don't know. And he just was trying to make a point, right? Because the team was playing at a certain level, and I was trying to get there. But yeah, I mean, a lot of times that I feel bad when I hear Meshack talking about all this stuff, but I'm lucky that we have a great relationship. So
nice. Meshack, maybe, here you are, you play professional basketball today, but you weren't highly recruited out of high school, and you make it to CBU. Something interesting that Javon Masters brought up is development, and he talks about, putting in the work every day. Was there a time, like, clearly you advanced through your 5 years, when did you really say, all right, I'm going to play basketball and I'm going to take it from here at CBU and I'm going to get paid to do this?
Probably, I would say 2 different points that happened in my life where after my 2nd year, winning that championship, I felt like we could have repeated. That year, we dealt with injuries. I was hurt. We brought in guys like Kenny Jean-Louis, Kyle Hankins, a lot of guys that were ineligible to play right away. So we struggled that 3rd year. We still managed to get to playoffs. Going into my 4th year, I knew that I couldn't rely on some of the dynamic wing players we had early in my career. So I kind of told myself, okay, I got to really take this to the next level. And even at this point, my 4th year, pro basketball wasn't even in my mind. I fell in love with basketball because of my older brother, but like myself, never. And in my 4th year, I remember Matt challenging me, basically, like, we want you to be the best big, we want you to do this. So the last 2 or 3 summers of my years at CBU, I actually would message Matt, and I'd try to come back as early as I could. Whether it was kids camp, we'd get into the gym. I would talk to Cedric and all those guys. We'd communicate. And after having such a dominant 4th year, getting the first team All-Star, I felt like we should have won that year, but Cash's lucky shot, nightmares to this day, is what kind of propelled me to say, okay, like, I can actually make money doing this. I didn't think I'd end up where I am now, but I think for me, going to Cape Breton and not having the same publicity as like a Ryerson or an Ottawa or Carleton, forced me to work twice as hard. So now in the pro world, I've met a lot of lazy guys. But for me, I work double as hard because this is what I'm used to. This is just part of my character. And it's helped me to advance. And, you know, during my pro kits, you know, a lot of guys, you know, slip back because they don't want to put up the extra shots, or even eating has become massive for me. You know, getting on a diet and eating properly is something I didn't take care of at all at Cape Breton. So I think in my 4th year and in my 5th year, definitely, I mean, I probably had the worst game of my career against Acadia. We played Acadia. I mean, I feel like we kind of overlooked them. Like, that was a game we felt like we should have just won in advance. And we were playing with such a flow that game that there was a time where I didn't really need to score. And then Ben Miller caught fire. And I kept telling myself, man, just score like a bucket. Score like break the bleed, stop the bleeding. And, you know, unfortunately I didn't. And I remember that's probably the first time I cried in university. And I went back to my phone and a bunch of agents hit me up. And then those tears had to be quickly wiped away because I said, okay, now it's game time, right? Like, I'm looking at this as a job now. So, like, you know, I can be upset and cry about it for however long, but I got to get myself into gear. So
that's really special. Yeah, go ahead, Coach Skin.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of really the things that I really wanted to talk to you about tonight too were the two things. I wanted you to talk a little bit about, you know, that relationship with your brothers, you know, obviously the four of you all, you know, being such high level players, and, you know, the funny stories that I've heard about your parents putting locks on the fridge so that you guys couldn't eat and stuff like that at certain times of the day. So I want you to talk about that. And then I have to bring it up because I feel so fortunate that I was able to coach both you and Mambi Diawara, and you guys both played together in Romania this year. So talk a little bit about, you know, your brothers and how they pushed you, and then talk a little bit about your year in Romania with Mambi this year.
Well, first of all, I tell everyone, as I say, I thank my parents. I say, Mom and Dad, I thank you guys because you guys gave me the perfect blueprint why not to marry a tall woman, because they gave birth to some monsters. And yeah, the story that Coach Skin talked about, our fridges were locked. They were locked at times because food was going. You can imagine the grocery bill. I saw my parents spend easily over $1,000 on groceries one week, easily, which is incredible. We just were able to eat. But my brothers, man, CJ in high school was the guy. You know, he had Michigan State. He was supposed to go to the league, everything. At that time, it was him, Maurice Walker, Alwyn Bigby, like all these big-time Canadian players. And just watching him, like, he was like the Canadian version of LeBron, like, and he was catching lobs from half court. Something we didn't really see in Canada in a while at that position with that speed and athleticism, so it was special. And I remember in grade 11, I joined his high school. I played behind him, didn't really play, but just getting to experience, you know, the travels and like seeing him up close is the reason why that kind of pushed me to want to, you know, play basketball. And it's crazy how life comes full circle because he was always way better than me. But then he actually joined the Halifax Hurricanes with me. And there were games where I would play over him, or I'd finish fourth quarters, which is probably the game at Cape Breton when I played there. And I kind of joked about it with him in the change when I would nudge him, and just because we were just thinking about how I was just this fat kid and got no burn, and he was like God at the time, you know. And now that I'm taking some of his minutes, so definitely full circle. And the following summer, we all played together with the Guelph Nighthawks in the CBO. That's probably a moment that I will never forget. Having three brothers on the same pro team is pretty crazy. We push each other. We've never needed outside assistance. I never really had to hit up my friends and say, let's go hoop, because my brother's always willing. And now we have Elijah's actually stronger than I am now. I'm going to admit that on camera. I didn't want to admit that for a while, but we've gone into the gym and he's special. He's an animal, fluid. And he has a little bit of, his game comes from all of us. And now I've been training with just him all summer. And
what's his age group, Meshack?
Right now he's 22.
Okay.
So he has 2 more years.
Plays out.
He has 2 more years of eligibility. Yeah, he's at Oral Roberts University in Oklahoma. So he's doing really well. They lost 5 starters. So the coach basically said he wants the team captain to give him the reins. And I mean, playing this year in Romania was a little bit tough in the beginning. And when I heard the Mambi situation was hard in Argentina, Mambi had reached out to me and I brought him. And man, I can't even believe if me and Mambi were to play on the same court in university because we complement each other so well. And his instincts, his feel for the game, his humbleness, I don't think I've seen it since Jimmy. Mommy's just a natural born scorer. He works extremely hard. He's a good kid. Playing with him, having another U Sports athlete with me there was just made the whole transition easier. It also made his transition easier as well. So it's something that we just look back and we just said, man, we had a tough time there, but we got through it. Obviously, it was ended shortly due to COVID. But, I mean, I can understand why Matt, used to rave about Mommy because he's a player and he's going to be one for a long time.
Take us a little bit into the comparison, man. Like, it was a short time in Portugal and you had some other stops along the way, but the Canadian pro scene versus overseas. I know in the NBL, Coach Mike Leslie raves about you as a person, as a player, all that stuff. What does it mean to play at home versus over there? Take us through a little bit of the differences and what the pro leagues at home mean to you.
I talked to a lot of guys, the Billy Whites, those guys, and I asked them, I said, why don't you guys go overseas? I think a lot of guys struggle with that language barrier, being over there away from family. I've never, ever struggled being away, and that's part of the reason why Cape Breton worked out for me because it gave me independence. It forced me to grow on my own and to mature because at home, my parents are really, close-knit to us. They want to do everything for us, so that gave me a chance to mature. I would say playing at home, it's just you have that comfort, you have that feel, people, not really a language barrier. The time change, obviously, and you have fans. Playing in Halifax, I made a lot of fans. I think everywhere I've played, I've made fans with either a family or people that I still talk to this day. Overseas is a little bit more difficult because you're not growing. In college, you're there for 4 or 5 years, so you build connections, and even in the pros in Canada. Because you're Canadian in Canada, they still know who you are. So they'll come out. I had a lot of people from Cape Breton that would come to my games, like Cape Breton, right? That would sometimes come to my games in Halifax because, a local kid. But overseas, you don't have that same advantage. And some of the games are at times people can't watch it. So, support was a little bit difficult. But that was probably the biggest thing for me. Romania, playing over there, that was probably the most challenging because their language barrier was the biggest out of anywhere I've been. They spoke no English there. Very different country, just very to themselves. It's Eastern Europe, so it's a little bit, they're a little bit war torn. It was a good experience for me because it really forced me to focus just on basketball. And I think that's going to continue to propel me to get into even higher leagues because it's made me work tremendously hard on my body this summer. Coming home, I used to laugh at people that used to do YouTube videos. Now I'm realizing how hard they actually are to do. Sitting in front of a screen and doing 20 or 100 squats is not easy. Yeah. But it's helped me. So I think it's going to make me a better person and a better player moving forward.
Unless you're Matt Skin, he does that every day.
So Meshack, you've done some traveling and I lived in Halifax and I supported the Rainmen and the Hurricanes and I just love that league so much. Can you mention the talent that's available here in Atlantic Canada in the NBL? Because I don't feel it gets the respect it deserves. Antoine Mason hit some huge buckets, Division I in the tournament. Mm-hmm. There's guys that have big names, but they just show up here in Halifax and we say ho hum. So can you mention a couple guys and names you've played with or against, and just say the special talent that they might have had?
One of the best guards I've ever played with is probably Mike Poole. I've never played with a guard, probably since Jimmy, that could take over a game. I remember one game we were down, I think it was against Cape Breton. He scored 18 in the fourth. Mike Poole was tough. Obviously playing against Billy White was tough. Royce White was in the league playing against guys like him. These guys were tough, solid players. I think with the NBL, the issue here is that there have been issues and situations in the past that have given the league a bad name. Obviously, the Halifax Windsor series. One of the first things I heard when I went overseas to agents was they said that the league wasn't respected. But honestly, the talent level could rival almost any league out there in Europe, unless it's a Euro league. And these players are tough. Billy White, of course, he could probably play G League. He could put up numbers anywhere. So I think the talent level in terms of being respected, I just think that there's been so much negative coverage in the league. There's this negative, before I even got to the NBL, I knew not a lot of good things were said about the NBL, unfortunately. When I played, for a first-class organization like Halifax, with how they ran it, I said, this is not too bad. But then when you talk to guys from like Windsor and hearing their situations and stuff, then you hear like, and I think that stuff travels through the basketball world and it reaches other people and agents, because a lot of agents actually send their players here and their players give a bad report back to the agents. And then I think that's where that bad traffic has happened, that lack of respect.
Yeah, it'd be nice if we could just clean the slate. Basketball's been in Halifax professionally for, you're looking at close to 15 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And like you say, I just wish that we had this opportunity to grow it through those 15 years and that we would have an established base right now. But like you say, the talent's in the league, so people should be getting out and watching.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Hey, Meshack, I know we get to talk about this sometimes, but I want you to share with our audience too, because I think, even this short amount of time, people getting to know you, they can just see what type of guy you are and, what you would bring to a program. I know you're going to have a long pro career, but what are your thoughts about what you're going to do once you hang them up? Like, I know you're not thinking about that right now. You're thinking about focused on the next season, but I mean, you can do whatever you want. What are you going to be doing when you hang it up?
I think this started when I was at Cape Breton. Kids naturally drift towards me. I had that passion. I've been working any kids camp. When I was 16, I worked at a community center. It was called Our Community Cares, and we worked with like underprivileged kids with single parents. There's a lot of different stuff. And being in that situation opened up my eyes to the reality of how much of an impact we have as athletes on children, and how important it is for us to actually be good role models. So I saw that effect at Cape Breton, kids wearing my numbers after I left, parents messaging me to this day. So for me, I kind of want to use basketball as like a platform, not only of inspiration, being on Instagram and stuff, I'm always talking about my journey. And, basically what I want to do is inspire that next kid, the next Meshack per se, in that position to be like, hey, you can make it, you can do it, you can get through it. So I definitely want to do something that has to do with youth and kids, because a lot of kids, basketball is like a runaway for them, whether it gets them out of the hood or gets them out of, bad situations. And for me, when I was younger, I never had a camp. I never went to a kids camp. I never had any of that stuff. So I understood how it felt. And I remember running a camp in Toronto and a kid coming up to us and saying he had no money, and it wasn't my camp, and they rejected him. And that really broke my heart. So for me, it was like, okay, I want to build something myself that necessarily I make enough money to fund kids, even if they don't have the money to do it, because you never know a kid's situation at home. A lot of kids are dealing with, domestic abuse, violence at home, a lot of these things and then you're seeing the result of it. Maybe the kid is bullying people or he's failing in his grades and you don't really know the backstory to it. So I think me giving back to kids, because I didn't really have that. I mean, I didn't struggle in that area, but I definitely saw a lot of my friends that did. So that's kind of something that I want to do, and hopefully it stays within my basketball career and I can stay close to that. Maybe it could be in the field of coaching or something in that area. So
amazing.
Yeah, very amazing. That all sounds so fantastic. There's not too many guys that run through the league that have as many good things said about them as you. Congratulations on everything so far, for sure. All the best on next season and that vision you just shared with us. And yeah, man, all the best.
That's a great way to wrap up, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, so special, man. And carry on. Like, I think if you want to plug your social media, I think you're honestly a really great guy to follow, because it's always positive messages and you do share your bumps in the road. And I think that's something that, as you mentioned, can really affect somebody at the right time.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Well, that's another episode of Two Shots in the Ball. Thank you guys so much. Meshack, again, man, thanks for being on. And boys, we'll talk to you next week. So thanks again.
Thank you for having me on. Thank you.
Lick out.